Hi, I'm Stu Karoff. Thank you for joining us. It was in the early 2000s when I was first introduced to this thing called open source. A friend of mine recommended a program called OpenOffice, which was open source and free. This program, even in its early version, was great. It was just what I needed, and programmers out there somewhere had collaborated together to make it and give it away so folks like me could use it. Later, I started to use Linux, which is a whole operating system built the same way on open source software. First, I used it as a hobby at home, and then I decided to use it at school. This is where my eyes were opened as I saw the potential for Linux and open source to change a school. I founded the first two school Linux clubs in Minnesota, the Community School of Excellence Asian Penguins and the Aspen Academy Penguin Corps. Both programs started from kids having fun learning something new, and both ended up using open source to help people. First, the Asian Penguins at Community School of Excellence in St. Paul. They were the start of an experiment. Get open source software, get used computers, have kids do the work, and see what happens. The results of the experiment are in. This works. The Asian Penguins started in 2011 when I got some Linux desktop computers for my classroom. The students loved the computers and started coming to my room after school to use them. The kids were Asian, mascot of Linux is a penguin, so the Asian Penguins was born. In 2019, I came to Aspen Academy and continued the experiment. I had said any school could do this, so now it was time to prove it. The Penguin Corps started with 14 students, and at last count, we were at almost 50, and we have impacted hundreds more by refurbishing old computers for students. Between both schools, we've given away several hundred computers. And the way it works is this: open source software plus used computers plus student techs equals more kids learn. And it started from a simple idea: get kids using open source and see what happens. Now it's time to let the kids tell the story. Thank you very much. Up first from the students is Michael A.
Hi, I'm Michael Atkinson. We are trying to change the world. Well, what happens when you try? Sometimes you succeed. Let me tell you about it. In the Penguin Corps, we have weekly meetings. At those meetings, we select a leader to be master of ceremonies and get things going. We always start the same way. The leader asks us, "What are we trying to do?" We respond, "Change the world." Then the leader asks, "How do you change the world?" We reply, "Be crazy enough to think you can." That gets things started on a positive note, and we're excited about whatever we're doing that morning. Lessons started for us with learning how to install software. This isn't just the apps, but also the operating system itself. And doing it in Linux is very different from doing it in Windows. Most of these computers we work on, people thought were old, outdated, and useless. But with Linux, we revived them. They are currently in the several classrooms at our school and were used by hundreds of students during distance learning. Some of the lessons we used came from the FLOSS Desktop for Kids curriculum from the Open Source Initiative. It had a lot of good ideas that really worked for us. Its author, Patrick Masson, wanted to see schools have an open resource for doing this kind of stuff. We recommend it. Most people today think installing software means simply clicking a button that says install. Well, that can be done in the Linux world too, but we found it a lot more fun to open up a terminal window and type in the commands themselves. In fact, all of the members in the Penguin Corps learned how to do this, and we never made it a requirement because everyone wanted to do it anyway. I enjoy it too. As I mentioned, we refurbish computers. We work on old computers that either the school didn't want anymore or that people gave to us. Most of those computers were placed with students that didn't have one. You'll learn more about this from Cam, but here's a preview. We closed our school's digital divide. We also provided computers for our school. We set up full classroom sets of laptops for a few middle school classrooms and station sets for elementary classrooms, along with putting PCs in our school media center. A lot of kids were helped this way. When our school went to distance learning, more computers were needed for kids at home. We provided those too, along with keeping a supply of replacements for the office in case something needed to be replaced. On September 27th, we started our latest project, our case study. This is where we test our one-to-one program. Here's my computer. The fact that it's all free software makes it even cooler. I love my computer. It works great. Our program is the only one we can find that is the one-to-one with Linux, used computers, and student techs like me. And the kids in the back of the room. Say hi.
Hi.
From there, we went on to present at conferences, just like this one, and started our YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe to us. You know what they say about all work, no play, right? Well, we end each season of the Penguin Corps by having a party. We get to have fun playing games and eating a lot of snacks. Well, you might be asking, what impact did we have? For starters, some of our middle school teachers don't need to check out computer cards because they have computers in their rooms. Again, those were computers that nobody else wanted. In the last 2 years, our school's Linux user base has grown from 0 to over hundreds of students. We are learning tech skills that we won't learn anywhere else, at least not yet. And let's not forget that we closed our school's digital divide at a time when we really needed it. Thank you for listening. Next up is Kat.
Hey, I'm Kat. I've looked over the schedule and was very happy to see so many women were going to be talking today. Thanks for doing that. Okay, fine, I'll be fair. Thanks to the guys for doing the same thing, and almost as well, too. I'm here today to talk about diversity in the world of technology. You're here today because you have an interest in sharing resources. So do we. Our interest is in tech, specifically open source tech. And while technology can be exciting, if we're honest, we'll have to admit that the open source world is not as diverse as it could be. The history of technology is mainly about guys, with few of those men being of color. Nothing is wrong with those guys doing tech, it's just that it's not a very diverse picture. While this is true, it helps to remember that there were some women who changed the world of technology, as well as remembering they were great leaders. How about Admiral Grace Hopper, one of the earliest computer programmers? There's also Mary Jackson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Katherine Johnson, who helped NASA put astronauts into space. You may have seen their history in the movie Hidden Figures. Although role models and leaders were few and hard to find, they still did exist, and boy were they great at what they did. That brings us to today, where 95% of techs are in open source are male, and only 16% are members of minority groups. We have some room to grow. When the Penguin Corps started at our school, Mr. Keroff and the school leaders wanted to make sure that the door was open to all middle school students. Could a middle school Linux club become a diverse place? The answer to that is of course. The question had already been answered by a club that came before us. That club is the Asian Penguins at Community School of Excellence in St. Paul, Minnesota. The Asian Penguins make a deliberate effort to attract students of diverse backgrounds and both boys and girls. As a result, it is multicultural and their team is 30% to 50% girls in any given year. The Penguin Corps is now in its third year, and I'm happy to report the efforts have definitely paid off. Last year, our team had 46 members, and we are still open for more members to join us. That's definitely more than when we first started. We've had students who are African American, Arab, Bengali, biracial, Ethiopian, Filipino, Ghanaian, Haitian, Hispanic, Indian, Kenyan, Somali, Tanzanian, and white from all over Europe, with a total of 15 girls. That's 37%, people. What attracted all of these students to the Penguin Corps? Well, we enjoy learning new things about the world that is developing right in front of us. We learned that everyone can make a change in the world that is still yet to come. In the Penguin Corps, we all work together as a team. We are united in a way that we think everyone should be. We have a chance to make a bright future for the world ahead of us. So let's embrace that chance. We have boys and girls delivering Linux computers to classrooms who need them. Boys and girls learning to install Linux and open source apps. Boys and girls troubleshooting problems. We all help each other to embrace our chance to change the world. Now that the elementary kids see the example we set, they know that the Penguin Corps is for everybody. This has been amazing, and our team has accomplished a lot of exciting things, especially when the boys pay attention and stay on task. If a kids club can be diverse and welcoming, why can't the rest of the open source world? Let's all invite, welcome, recognize, and respect. We are all human, we are all equal, and we are all united in the open source world. Thank you very much. Now please welcome Cam Satrowski.
Hi, I'm Cam Satrowski, Penguin Corps founder. Hopefully you've gotten the point that this is not just something we do, but something that we believe in. For almost 2 years now, the whole world has been shaken by the changes brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. Millions of people have gotten sick and many have died. And just about every part of society has been affected. Businesses, government, travel, and yes, education. I want to talk to you today about not only how COVID affected our school, but what we in the Penguin Corps did about it. First, the change. In March 2020, schools everywhere were converted to distance learning. That's where teachers provided lessons online and kids went to school in their homes over the internet. It was definitely a change. Attending school from home was tough, but at least I had a computer to use. But what about the kids at school who didn't have computers? Or the families who didn't have enough computers for all the kids in the house? What were they supposed to do? Our school's leader reached out to the Penguin Corps to create a solution. First thing we needed to do was to survey the parents to find out which families needed a computer. Armed with that information, we got to work. We installed Linux on computers the school didn't want anymore so they could be given to families who needed them. Then we gave those away. More responses started to pour in. We realized that our supply we had would not even be close to enough. It was time to think bigger. Our team reached out all over social media and in the local newspaper asking for computer donations. A whole bunch of people and even some businesses responded. Laptops started to pour in. Most of them worked, but some needed minor repairs, such as new batteries or other parts. All of the computers needed new software. Linux and open source apps were the solution. We got the computers up and running, and then the school gave them away. From the middle of March 2020 to the first week of May, we gave away 60 computers. This closed our digital divide we had at the time, as Aspen's classes were asynchronous, and kids could share a computer at home. Then the school started up again in the fall, and Aspen Academy was told at the last minute that we had to go hybrid. This means that all the kids in the school would spend at least part of their week attending live classes online. All of a sudden, every single student needed a device, and demand went through the roof. Again, we appealed online to get donations. We also bought used computers from the MN Surplus Exchange where we could get them cheap. Then the school started to hand them out. This turned out to be a bigger job than anyone could have predicted. At our open house in August, we handed out 132 laptops, and it still wasn't enough. We compiled a waiting list and continued to get computers ready, giving them out in a steady stream over the next few weeks. Finally, by October, we had gotten to the last kid on our list. We had handed out over 300 computers. Yes, you heard that right, over 300 computers. But this was expensive, right? Wrong. Most of the computers were donated. With us buying a few parts, the biggest cost was buying refurbished computers from the state, but they were at a fraction of buying new. As of right now, our total cost was about $7,000. We saved our school over $90,000. During that time, other schools were having trouble even finding computers because of supply line problems. But our students were taken care of because of open source and used computers. It can be done. All of this won Aspen Academy the 2021 MESPA STEM Innovation Award. That feels great, but it feels even better to know that we made a difference. Thank you for listening. I'm Cam Satrowski. Coming up next is Jaina Nanda.
Hello, my name is Jaina Nunda, and I'm glad you came. And if you weren't before, within the next few minutes, you're going to be glad you came too. Please get yourself ready, because the persuader is in the house. Of course, to get permission to do this open source stuff at school means that we have to convince our school leaders that it's a good idea. This means that sometimes we have to turn on the charm. I hope you're feeling persuadable. You've heard my team talk about how we use open source stuff at school. Now I'd like to talk about why. I'm about to give you some reasons why you should start a Linux club. Some of you might ask, why do schools need something like that? Or say, that's not the kind of thing for me. We believe that any school can do this, but that school might need your help. Let's talk about some reasons. The program is affordable, all of the software is free, and if you're using old computers, you don't have to pay a lot for them. Something else to keep in mind, people like to help kids. When they hear you're running a club that has kids recycling computers, they'll give you computers. Remember what Cam talked about? And when you fundraise for a kid's computer club, people are likely to give money to support it. Linux runs great on old computers. We use it to bring old computers back to life. This not only saves money, but it reduces e-waste, and last time I checked, this country produces too much e-waste. You get to help people in a variety of ways. You help kids learn. In the Linux Club, we learn how to do all this stuff. We learn how to install software, fix computers, update and upgrade computers, and all sorts of other skills. These are in-demand skills. According to the 2020 Open Source Jobs Report from the Linux Foundation, 81% of hiring managers said that open source talent was important to them, and 93% of them said it was hard to find qualified help. Numbers like that speak for themselves. You help people who are outside of the school. If your school doesn't need computers, lots of your school's families probably do. That was certainly the case for us. And remember, when you give an old computer to a kid, you're helping the family too. You help the school itself. The Penguin Corps refurbished enough laptops to help hundreds of kids in their home during distance and hybrid learning. Now that we're back in the building, we're using those laptops to help several classrooms. Since those teachers have their own laptop sets, they don't need to check out our school computer carts, leaving them for other teachers to use. We also provided desktop computers to some classrooms and our media center. Everyone benefits. It's fun. That should be enough of a reason for anybody. And when you're refurbishing computers or teaching at conferences, you're not in class and you're helping others. As you can see, there are lots of reasons why schools should have an open source club. It's affordable, people get helped, and kids have fun. And folks, 3 out of 3 ain't bad. Coming up next is Michael Martin. Thank you for listening, and please consider yourself persuaded.
Hello, I am Michael Martin. We see a mutual connection between open educational resources and open source. Both are built through collaboration, both are often free to get, and both can be redistributed to help others. One is content, the other is code. In fact, they work so well together that kids at our school use open source computers to read OER textbooks. It's a pretty awesome thing to see. We started off by saying that schools need open source. Well, the open source world needs schools too. Where do you think future IT professionals are right now? They're in class. The open source world and education world do not intersect very often. And if we can change that, we can change everything. You can be part of the solution by starting an open source program where you are. If Mr. Anunda did his job properly and persuaded you, here are some of the things you'll need to get started. 1. A supervisor. This could probably be you. If you're into OERs, you have a do-it-yourself attitude already. Just apply what you already do to computers. 2. The go-ahead from the administration. Each school has a different way of doing activities. Find out how it works there and put it into your plan. More likely than not, if your school has clubs, they're looking for more ideas for clubs and more adults to run them. Make yourself available. 3. Computers. Remember, they don't have to be new ones. 4. Software. Your computers will need an operating system and apps. When you use Linux, then you get your software for free. That really helps. 5. Kids. Obviously, that's the whole point. 6. Space and time. A club will need place to meet and keep its stuff, and club activities will have to fit into the schedule. Work with your local administration to figure that out. Not sure how to start? Tip 1. Start small. Use Linux yourself. We would recommend starting with Ubuntu, but there are many other versions to choose from. I guarantee you'll find one that fits you. A couple of resources you could use would include the Floss Desktop for Kids curriculum from the Open Source Initiative. We use some of their lessons. Another is the Linux Club Guide, written by our very own Mr. Keroff. The guide gives a lot of helpful suggestions about how to get a Linux club started, and makes it fun. It's available online at www.linuxclubguide.com. Again, that's www.linuxclubguide.com. Recruit kids. It's not that hard. They will love it. And I'm telling you this from personal experience. Get computers. This is easier than you think. Remember, they don't have to be new. Many people, even sub-businesses, will want to give you your computers for your club. Your school might even have some they don't need anymore. Work your own contacts. Many people might have old computers laying around, and there are plenty of places to get computers cheaply. State governments and universities often sell computers they don't need anymore. And there are thrift stores also. Free Geek, Tech Dump, and eBay. We've gotten computers from all of these sources, and so can you. Do software and hardware lessons. Use stuff from a curriculum. Tips you see online, or just make something up. There's nothing wrong with learning right alongside your kids. Remember, if you really screw something up, just grab a flash drive and start all over. Open source software gives you the freedom to do whatever you want. Our biggest project became our school's digital divide. We closed it. Maybe this is what your school needs. The formula is simple. Open source software plus used computers plus students equals more kids learn. It works. This isn't just about having fun. This is about making a difference. Do you want to change the world? Start being crazy enough to think you can. Thank you very much.